Your turn, Yugi boy.
What is up, guys? This is AlintheaYoh coming at you today with an updated version of my Evilswarm deck profile. So I played this deck for a very long time, and yeah, I just happened to pick up the DT Evilswarm deck core that I've been wanting for quite a while because I got rid of it a long time ago when it was massively hyped and sold it for a ridiculous amount of money that it wasn't even worth. But you know, it's just one of those things, isn't it? So without further ado, go straight into the deck profile. So starting us off, we have the 3 Evilswarm Caster, one of your main cards that you are using in the deck. Do not forget, this card used to be effect veilered a lot, and I'd just be like, that is fine. Normal summon. Because it is a condition, it is not effect that activates. So, very important thing to remember with that. It's the same as Constellar Pollux as well. They were both two big ones, the big talking points back in 2013. So yeah, that was quite fun. But yeah, he's your main card. You want to see him first turn as much as possible. And yeah, just in general, he is a good card. Next up, we have 3 Evilswarm Heliotrope. Heliotrope were probably my most favourite flavoured text of the actual game. You know, with it all backwards and such. It's just really, really cool. I really like that. I really like little things like that. It's really nice. But yeah, Heliotrope standard. You know, it's your rabbit target. It's just a normal target. It's a pretty good 1950 beta as well. So yeah, do like it. Next up, we have the 3 Evilswarm Thunderbird. Thunderbird makes sense because it's just one of the best cards for the deck too. Being able to dodge problem monsters, being able to dodge problem effects, and also use it for your own effects to be able to send it back if your opponent just tries to, for example, normal summon an attack over it. You can activate one of your effects and try and jump out of the way. So running 3 is standard in my opinion. You don't really need to cut it because it's just one of those cards that you really need. Next up, we have 3 Evilswarm Mandragora. Now, Mandragora is an interesting card. It's a summoning requirement. It's basically if your opponent has more monsters than you do, you can special summon it from your hand. And what I really like about it is the fact that if your opponent makes a big board, so for example, this deck can struggle going second. And if your opponent establishes a big board, then you don't have amazing amount of big beaters or ways to get around them, because you normally want to go first in this deck and set up a wall, strap on the helmet, some might say. But with this, it allows you, if you draw multiples, it allows you to kind of special summon quickly and normally get about 2 Exceed monsters on the field. So that's what I really like about it, and just in general, it allows you to overextend as well if you do need it. So yeah, in general, it is good. Come here. Next up, we have 3 Evilswarm Kirkion. Obviously, you play Kirkion, and he's again one of the better ones too. It's so annoying. It's not in dual terminal. Rip. First world Yu-Gi-Oh problems, right? But yeah, so Kirkion obviously is a great card. Being able to just banish an Evilswarm from your graveyard and add one back to your hand, and then normal summon again. That one is an effect, so that's an important thing to remember. But yeah, so you play 3. It's standard. I don't need to say too much about that one. And then finally for the monsters, we have 1 Evilswarm, not Evilswarm, 1 Rescue Rabbit. That's definitely not an Evilswarm Rescue Rabbit right there. But Rabbit is standard. Like, you run it because you run the Heliotropes. And if Rabbit was at 3, I would probably run Sabersaurus or Cabazals to add in a Lagiadolka engine as well. But you know, it's just one of those things. I really wish Rabbit would go to 3. It's such a pretty card, and I don't think it would be too bad, or would it? Anyway, so yeah, Rescue Rabbit is obviously in here. I don't play like things like Unexpected Die, simply because it really clogged for me and it was really annoying. Whenever I saw it, I just didn't need it. And I had already used, for example, my Heliotropes, or I banished them with Desires, whatever. So yeah, that's why I don't run that before anyone says anything saying, why are you not running X card? 3 Pot of Desires. Now, I know some people might say, oh, I'm getting sick of seeing them in your deck profiles. I know, but unfortunately they're just the type of decks that I've been running recently that can accommodate Pot of Desires. But Desires is good simply because you have so many, you don't really have like a massive amount of combo pieces in this deck. You just have the basic bread and butter, loads of monsters that all interact with each other. So if you banish some, it's fine. If you banish some of your trap cards that you're running multiples of, it's fine. So that's why I don't mind it in this deck too much. And at 3 as well, it's just because you can see it as quickly as possible, because the idea is you can go and make an Orpheon, search out, and then play Desires to try and get more counter traps. So it all works out, and yeah, Desires is alright. If you don't want to run Desires, or if you can't afford it, you can just run like draw cards like Upstart or something, as well as more back row. Or you can play back row if you want, but more floodgate cards is what I was looking for. Next up we have the 3 Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness, obviously a brilliant card. You're all darks apart from the Rescue Rabbit, and yeah, makes sense, you know? It's a good card. It's a good draw card. 2 Infestation Pandemic. Pandemic is one of those cards that will see good play in different formats. Obviously because it relies on your opponent having back row, and a lot of people don't really run that much targeting back row or back row destruction or spell and trap destruction type thing. They run a lot of counter traps nowadays, and obviously you can't really respond to a counter trap with the activation of this. So it is just one of those things to keep an eye out for. You can change it meta depending, and that's what I normally do. So yeah, Infestation Pandemic can be at 2, 1 can be fine as well since you can search it. Next up we have the 2 Mass Change, Mass Change 2. So Dark Claw is a good card, and you run Darks and you don't mind discarding, so Dark Claw makes sense. Dark Claw and Orpheon as well is a pretty disgusting field, especially backed up with back row, and it is a fun thing to do. So Mass Change just makes sense to me. Like having 1 Dark Claw in the extra deck, spoiler, is fine. You don't really need many more. Having 2 in the deck means that you don't get that one of banished by Desires, and if you get both of them banished by Desires, then hey, it's not exactly one of your main plays. It does suck, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? So yeah. Next up, the 2 Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion, obviously great in the deck. Norden is a thing. Instant rank 4s, you know, it makes sense. And then the 1 Raigeki and the 1 Reinforcements of the Army, 1 Rotor. Raigeki just to clear any problem monsters, and a Reinforcements of the Army just to search out that caster, because that is the main card you'll be searching it with. Going on to the traps, we have 2-dimensional barrier. Now you can run 3 if you want, but it's real space constraints in this deck. For me, so I've cut it down to 2. Being able to stop your opponent from using, or special, well, both of you, being able to stop both of you from using or special summoning Ritual Fusion, Synchro Z, or Pendulum monsters is a really solid thing, especially if you have, for example, a Orpheon on your side of the field, so you are controlling the duel. So yeah, it's a really solid card, very, very good. I really do like it, and yeah, it's just one of those cards that is like kind of meta-defining currently. Next up, we have the 2 Solemn Strike and the 1 Solemn Warning. Kind of makes sense, you know, it is your Solemn Brigade. You're running a lot of traps, so makes sense. Don't need to say too much about those bad boys. 2 Floodgate Trap Hole. This is just here to stop any problem monsters that may arise, or if you just don't like where your opponent's going, you want to interrupt them in some way, shape or form, yeah, that's all fine. It's obviously good for a Rafflesia target as well. The other Rafflesia target is the 1 Bottomless Trap Hole. Again, don't need to say too much about that. Vanity's Emptiness is obviously a good card. Orpheon Vanity's Emptiness or Master Key Beetle Vanities. The Vanity's Lock is good. So yeah, they're pretty standard. The 1 Macrocosmos is just good because it hits so many decks in this format. So that's why I like Cosmos, and it doesn't really affect you all that much. It affects your Kirkion plays, but that's about it. And then finally, the 2 cards I want to talk about. We have an Infestation Infection and an Infestation Terminus. So if you don't know what these do, Infection is a continuous trap card that says once per turn you can shuffle 1 Evilswarm monster from your hand or face up on the field into the deck, and then add 1 Evilswarm monster from your deck to your hand. So if, for example, you have a annoying monster that is on your opponent's side of the field and they're going to try and destroy it or dark hole it or something like that, you can activate this, chain the effect, then shuffle that monster back into the deck and then get a free search. So it's really, really good, and also good for digging for those like Evilswarm casters, for example, or the Kirkion. And that's why I really do like it. It works really well. A 1-of is nice because you can search it with Orpheon, so that's why it's good. Terminus as well is target 1, it's just a normal trap card this time. Target 1 Evilswarm monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls. Banish the first target, and if you do, return the second targets to the hand. So if your opponent's making big pushes with monsters, you can just activate this, banish 1 of your Evilswarm monsters, your Evilswarms of course, and then return them back to the hand, so you can really disrupt them quite nicely, and I really do like doing it. It's good against like ABCs, just getting those cards back into the hand, or just in general it's good, for example, against like Burning Abyss where you're just sending everything back. You can see where the application is good for, so yeah, that's why I run them. So going on to the extra deck, we have obviously the 2 Evilswarm Orpheon. You don't need 3 in my opinion, it's just not one of those formats where you need 3. And more often than not, if you've gone through 2, you're either losing really badly or you're winning. So, you know, an extra Orpheon isn't really going to help you, there are other cards that will. The one Evilswarm Ouroboros, obviously you're running Ouroboros because it's an Evilswarm card, so yeah, that makes sense. Don't go into it all that much, but yeah. The one Evilswarm Nightmare, really like this card. If you don't know what it does, it requires 2 level 4 darks. When your opponent special summons a monsters, you can detach 1 XZ material from this card to change the special summon monsters to face down defense position. So if your opponent pendulum summons 5 into this, you just flip all of them face down. It's basically a floodgate trap pull for special summon monsters. So it's really good. It works on multiple monsters as well, so that's why I really do like that card, and it really puts your opponent on tilt. The one Rafflesia makes sense. You're running traps, you're running trap holes, you're running back row dot deck, so yep. The one guy Cowboy, finally my ulti Cowboy, so happy about that, thank you Martin Harris. Dark Rebellion XZ Dragon to push over those big problem monsters, I do like it. The Utopias, because obviously you're running the Utopias, makes sense. I realise a lot of this is quite standard standard XZ cards. The Master Key Beetle, again, as I said earlier, just a very standard card. Being able to just lock your own monsters or back row to protect it is just good, and as I said, the Vanity's Lock is a thing. Rhapsody and Berserk, really good right now for multiple reasons, simply because you can banish those cards out of your opponent's graveyard, but also you can equip it to your Orpheon to make it a powerhouse, so that's why I really do like it and recommend running it if people aren't. The last two are the Castell and the Abyss Dweller. Obviously these cards go side by side, so that's just because they're so good. The one Dark Law, as I said, I am running the Mass Change 2 as you saw earlier, so that's why I'm running Dark Law, makes sense. And then finally the one Norden, because I'm running Instant Fusion, makes sense. So that is it guys, that is the deck profile. Let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of the deck. Do you think Evilswarm can compete at all this format? Or do you just think they're not very good and they're just too slow and they'll get trounced? So as I said, let me know down in the comment section below. Make sure to give me a like, comment, subscribe, and I shall catch you guys later.